Hello everybody, this is CJ Wiley with More Adventures on the Road. In writing my new book, I had to do some deep processing of my memories, and one of the things that seemed to connect all the dots was the right people at the right time in the right place always seemed to show up when I needed them. And a lot of times I didn't even know I needed them. And I go through several of these characters in the book, but one of them that really made a lasting impression was Dalton Leong. He was a Chinese guy from San Fransisco, and he was actually a professional actor. He'd been on an episode of Ironsides, and I think he was in an episode of Kung Fu, and among others. I don't remember exactly, but he was a actor, a real actor, and one of the best pool hustlers that ever lived, because he really got into his part. And since he was Asian, I mean, there's times we would go in, we went up to Minneapolis, Minnesota, and around all those small towns, and he would literally wear a camera around his neck and speak broken English like he was a tourist from China. And it's all I could do not to laugh at times, because he was so good at it. And he could imitate, if anybody's ever stayed in a one of those Patel hotels, the Indian hotels, they'll call you at like 10:49 and go, 11 o'clock checkout time, sir. It is time for you to leave. You need to go. And I mean, it's really aggravating. And but Dalton, I'll always remember, they called just like they normally do before 11, sir, you need to get out of the room. And Dalton just imitated the guy perfectly. He goes, oh, I'm so sorry. We had late night and we just needed extra time. Is there any way we can get an hour more and check out at noon? And, I mean, I'm butchering it, but he had like this Midas touch, and people just went along with him, because he was just he was so genuine, but he was an actor. That's why it's easy for me to recognize these actors on TV, trying to impersonate real people, because they always give it away. You just need to know what signs to look for. But Dalton taught me three things that really made an influence in my life. One is money must always be a result and never an incentive. And that is something that I live by. My incentive is always to do things as well as I can and bring out the perfection in whatever I'm doing. And a lot of times to a fault. I don't really think about the money as much, but I've done exceptionally well in life, but it's more subconscious, I think, with me, because I'm just not money oriented. But the other thing that Dalton said was, you have to find your center. Now, I didn't understand what that meant when he was talking about it, but we were talking about pool and just the overall game and how to aim, and because I've been around a lot of the greatest players in the world, and one thing that we've never talked about is aiming systems. The closest I ever got was Omaha John. I asked him, I said, do you have any system for aiming? And he goes, yeah, I use Kentucky Windage. And what's that? And it's a term used for shooting a rifle, usually. And Kentucky Windage is, if you're shooting low to the right, you need to aim higher to the left. So really what he's saying is, if you're not cutting balls enough, cut them thinner. If you're cutting them too thin, don't cut them as much. Now, that doesn't really help most people, but it's true that is how you calibrate your aiming, because it's more about a feel than it is anything visual. I mean, if it was just a visual thing, I mean, there'd be a lot of great shot makers that just had great eyesight, but that's not the case. Some of the greatest shot makers I've ever seen, they do it by feel. They didn't have very good eyesight. Mike LeBron was one of them. He won the U.S. Open when he was 54, and I know he couldn't see very well. He had to put glasses on to rack the balls, and he couldn't read a newspaper without glasses. So, that was pretty impressive. But what all of these great shot makers have in common is they have found their center. Now, what I teach is a way to go down on the ball where you start out centered and balanced, and you stay centered and balanced all the way down. Now, this requires, this was something I had to learn. This isn't something natural at all. The human body isn't made to play pool. So if you're doing things and just think it's going to be comfortable and you're going to improve, that's not the case. If you're playing and it just feels good and you're trying to be comfortable and relaxed and all that stuff, you're going to hit a wall pretty darn quick, and you'll just never get any better. And probably won't know why, because a lot of people do that, and they encourage each other to do that. And what I found is I constantly have to experiment and tweak things just a little bit. But as far as finding your center, that is, just like I'm driving, you find the center of your steering wheel, and then when you turn the wheel to the left an inch or to the right an inch, it'll deviate the same amount. So you're centered. Like if you weren't centered, when you turned one way, it would turn more than turning the other, and it'd be hard to drive a car. Everybody just naturally sits, and they make it pretty easy for us. We sit square to the steering wheel, looking out down, the target line of the road, and then we can turn either way and get a consistent, calculated response. Now, people don't do that playing pool. What they do is they sit sideways. If you notice, most people stand about 3 to 5 inches too far to the left when they're above the ball. Then when they go down, they shift over to the right and try to go down on that line, and then they try to make the cue straight with the line that they're looking at to a contact point or a ghost ball or whatever they're doing. That's not what I'm doing. What I'm doing is I'm thinking about it more as angles. So the game of pool is perfect as far as the geometric structure of the table. It's 2 squares, which is a rectangle, but all of the shots are triangles. So if you set yourself square to a shot, and you've got to cut it a little bit, that line that's connecting center to center is your reference, and then you calculate the angle based on that reference. It'd be like shooting a pistol and putting it straight out, and then you can just deviate slightly to the left or right, but you do it with your whole body so that you stay centered. That's why I don't like the backhand English thing, because when people move their backhand to create the angle to the cue, it disconnects with your eyes as far as the tip is concerned, and you lose your center. Now, tweaking that a little bit is okay, and a lot of people have developed that habit because they're out of line a little bit, and that adjustment will make things right. The only problem is it works better some days than others, and if you want to be completely consistent and be able to reach your highest level of performance, whatever that is, you have to get centered. And I used to get into these zones and just play phenomenal for hours at a time, but I subconsciously got into that zone. That's why I said earlier, a lot of the keys to my life was developing a subconscious way of doing things, because they say we only operate consciously about 10% of our total mental horsepower, so 90% of it is subconscious, which is controlling your heart rate and your circulation and your immune system and all that kind of intricate stuff. So it's like a mega computer. And if you learn how to control that, channel it, train it, you can get the best results, I think, possible. And then you get to the point where you're just doing it naturally, like walking downstairs. Nobody really thinks about left hand or left foot, right foot. Am I breathing in or out? You can mess somebody up when they're going downstairs. Just ask them, are you breathing in or out on your right foot when you step with your right foot? Because that'll break the subconscious zone or trance that they're in, and it messes them up. When you bring conscious attention to a subconscious activity, there is going to be, let's just call it a hiccup, because you have to stay in that zone, and that requires really thoughtless thought, is how they describe it. And the hitter and target become one, is what's written in Zen and the Art of Archery, which is a very good book for pool, because it teaches how to train yourself to go into a deep level zone. I've read the book probably 6 or 7 times, and if I read it or listened to it again, I would get something out of it again. If I was getting back into playing all the time, real competitively, I probably would listen to it, and because I would need to work on my mental game, as well as my physical game. But when you don't compete a lot, you lose that edge, and pressure tends to bother you more, and it's just it'd be really hard to play some of these premier players now, because they're in the spotlight all the time. They're used to playing under pressure, and so it's really not pressure to them anymore. It would be to me. It'd be hard for me to play my best game on center stage right now. But I think within 2 or 3 weeks, I know how to do it. It's just a matter of taking the time and the dedication. But now that I've got that super stroke and super stance trainer done and out, and I can start focusing on helping people that have a visual aid. I think the reason most people that I've given lessons to that didn't really get the entire concept, it was more because they're visual learners, and I can explain the stuff in 10 or 15 different ways, but a lot of people learn visually. So that's the reason I've got this stance mat, because it shows you exactly how to put your feet, and then I've got some exercises and routines that you can do to speed up the process of learning how to go down on the ball consistently every time and keep your center. And then the rest of your game will just automatically get better. A lot of times, players have a lot of knowledge, they just can't execute the shots because of their aiming and whatnot. So another thing that I do, I'm going to show in detail, is when you're centered, then you can pre-angle your cue to the shot that you're getting ready to shoot. So that's something that most people have never even heard of before, but that's one of my secrets, is I create the angle. I basically go down on every shot as if I've already made it. Now, if you're going to really do that, you have to prepare as if you've already made it. So the angle of the cue, the connection between the balls with your body, and of course the stroke and the timing, tempo, all those things have to be doing their part to create the consistency. Because pool is a pretty intricate game, There's not much margin of error. So if your body position is off, or your eyes are off, or you're trying to aim, like I really don't have to aim. I feel the angle more than trying to hit one ball into a specific part of another ball to go into a pocket. I couldn't do that. That's way too hard. So if that's what you're doing right now, I got some great news for you. You can learn to play the game a lot better, because once you're squared and centered and balanced, then everything that you know about the game is going to really apply because you'll be able to do it. And you won't have all that inconsistency when you play good one night and then the next night you've lost it. Where did it go? Well, it probably never was really there. Your subconscious, again, is really powerful. So if you're off on your body alignment and stuff, there are going to be nights when everything clicks. You feel confident and maybe you're comfortable with your surroundings. You're not playing Efren Reyes or somebody that's going to mess with you mentally as far as intimidation. And there's nights that everybody can play at a pretty high level. Now, can they do it against a top-notch player that's putting a lot of pressure on them? Probably not. I've seen some really good players absolutely fall apart playing me and playing guys like Efren and Earl and Johnny Archer and Shane Van Boning, because that subconscious doesn't work very well when you got pressure on it. Just like if you were walking down those steps and somebody said if you trip, they're going to cut your head off at the bottom, that would mess things up because that would put pressure on you, and all of a sudden you'd be like taking one step, carefully to prevent, those consequences. So anyway, you can now purchase my tools, I should call them, the Super Stroke and Super Stance. They come together. They're a package because you need both. That Super Stroke trainer is going to allow you to be able to practice this in the privacy of your own home or hotel room or apartment or wherever you're at. You don't need a pool table because you can develop the stance and the power in your stroke and the tempo by using these products, and they're available now at masteringpocketbilliards.com. And we revamped that website, so I have a store there. I'm going to have autographed books, but you can order those on Amazon or I know Apple has the audio book. It should be out on all the audio platforms by now. I haven't double checked, but they have to have a period of time to okay it, but everything's going to be okay. The book has nothing really controversial in it. It just has a lot of pool stories, but a lot of wisdom that I learned from, bringing out the perfection of the game. And I even tell the story of how I was given that message when this man came into my life and told me that the game is already perfect, CJ. You just have to bring out that perfection. You don't have to create it. You just have to discover it and bring it out. And then once you bring it out, you'll be able to share it with other people. So that is how it works. And anyway, I've got a lot of cool stuff coming up. I've got to make some videos to show some of these more advanced techniques. But now that people are going to have this Super Stance trainer, they're going to be able to learn that technique for sure if they want to put in the time, because it took me a couple weeks. It takes you 2 or 3 weeks to make any kind of change like that, no matter what it is. So I'll help you along, I promise. I've went through it, believe me. There's nothing you're going to do with your pool game that I haven't already experimented with and put thousands and thousands of hours into not only playing at the highest levels, but learning how to teach at the highest levels too. And I'm going to share things that I don't think you've ever heard before, but will be very effective. And at the end of the day, it's all common sense. It's just needs to be explained in a way that you can understand it and compare it to things that you already understand, like driving a car, being centered behind a steering wheel. Like I said, sometimes analogies like that are the best way to explain more advanced concepts, so it is easier to process. Anyway, till next time, this is CJ. Hope you're doing well. Talk with you soon.